Hello chess friends and welcome to the channel. Today is day 1 at the US Chess Championship 2020. Every year I wait till late night for me here in Italy for this tournament that I like so much. This year, for the COVID situation, the US Championship is played online but with a long rapid format that should help the players to produce beautiful games. 12 of the strongest American players, with the exception, this one I will really miss, of Fabiano Caruana, will fight for 11 rounds for a very good prize money, a total of $150,000. If I'm not wrong, the first position is $40,000. The games are 25 minutes plus 5 seconds of increment from 1, and we will begin our journey with the game Ramirez versus Wesley played in round 2. If you watch the San Luis Club YouTube channel, you already know Alejandro Ramirez that often appears there to teach us some beautiful lessons. But now, let's get started. Alejandro Ramirez, with the white pieces, opens the game with e4 and Wesley answers with c5, the Sicilian defense. Knight to f3, here comes d6, d4, so Ramirez goes for the open Sicilian, c captures, and knight to f6. Here comes, of course, knight to c3, a6, we are in the Najdorf. Bishop to e2 played by Ramirez is known as the classical system, and the idea is that white is preparing to castle, waiting without too many complications to see how black will develop. But here comes e5, this is the main continuation and the strongest one. The knight, as in many other lines, can also jump to f3, even to f5 sometimes, in some lines, but the main continuation is knight back to b3. Now bishop to e7, short castle for white, and now short castle for black. But let's wait 1 second, because in this position, and also before bishop to e7, many strong players, especially in the past, like to play bishop to e6. For example, Bobby Fischer won many important games with bishop to e6. But short castle is more accurate, because if now black plays bishop to e6 in Fischer's fashion, there is f4 that is annoying. So after short castle, also Wesley continues with short castle, and now f4 would be rushed, because after f4 black can play b5, then bishop to b7, already putting pressure against the center. So after short castle, now there are many good moves for white. Ramirez plays queen to d3. Now this, of course, developing the queen, this is a sort of overprotection of the e4 square to be able to jump in the future with the knight to the outpost d5. Now bishop to e6 is good, bishop to d2, so again a calm development for white. Wesley already played this position, a draw against Nigel Short in 2018, where he played knight in b goes to d7. This time he improves a bit, developing the knight to c6. So here comes knight to c6, the knight is able to jump to d5, and here comes a5. a4, blocking the pawn, but blocking the pawn, now the b4 square is clear, is free for this knight, for this thematic jump, and so black can exchange the bishop on the knight. Bishop captures, the e-pawn recaptures, and now the knight jump. This is a classical theme of the Najdorf. And now also white must give back the bishop pair. Bishop captures, and the a-pawn recaptures. Queen to b5, this is a novelty at grandmaster level, and Wesley reacts with the best move, that is rook to c8. Now the game is completely original, and now this invasion would be really terrible for white. In fact, Ramirez plays rook in a goes to c1. Queen to d7 for the queenside change. At first, rook in f goes to d1, and now Wesley he changes the queen. Queen capture, the bishop recaptures. Now let's look at the position to understand who is better. Because if Wesley he changed the queens, he must think that he is better. So white has a better pawn structure, but black can gain control with the rooks of the only semi-open file. Then this knight is better than the knight on b3, and what about the bishop? The bishop are both a bit bad, but it seems that the black one can reach a beautiful diagonal with the maneuver bishop to d8, bishop to b6. So there is a small advantage for black. Let's go on with the game. So how to continue now? The computer likes the maneuver bishop to d8 and bishop to b6. Wesley so instead plays another good idea. He wants to double the rooks to gain as soon as possible the control of the c5. So here comes rook to c7. Let's go back one move. Bishop to d8 for the computer, for Stockfish, is the best idea, but if white plays knight to d2, now bishop to b6, there is this strong knight jump, but of course the pawn is safe because there is bishop to c5, and only now Stockfish would like to play rook to c7, still with a small advantage for black. But anyway, this is rook to c7 is Wesley so idea, and now c4. Now of course the file is now closed, but after b capture on c3, the b pawn recapture, and now also white as a weakness in the pawn structure, the knight jumps to e4 and c3 is under attack. c3 must advance, so here comes c4, and this bishop, at least for now, only looks like a big pawn. After c4, here comes f5, another thematic push, and now f3. What to play now? If black moves back the knight to f6, there is the annoying c5, so to prevent this c5 push, Wesley so plays knight to c5, knight capture. Now how to recapture? Best recapture of course is with the rook, king to f2, and here comes g6, king to e2, h5. Notice all the pawns on the light squares because the bishop is the dark bishop, and now king to d3. Bishop back to d8 to find that beautiful diagonal, and here comes rook to b1. Rook to b1, good move because this is the only file where white can create some action. So bishop to a5, and now bishop to d7 improves the bishop. Well, improves, moves away the bishop with the rook attack against b7, but of course here comes rook to c7, attacking and defending. The bishop moves to e6 with check, sure, of course, better than before, and the king moves to g7. Here comes also c5. c5 is quite risky because it's possible for black to recapture even with the pawn, but if you recapture with the pawn, it's clear that this idea is played to force black to capture, not to force, to hope that black will capture with the pawn, but of course capturing with the rook is better. Let's watch what happens after the capture on c5. Watch the color of the arrow. This is just a variation that I like to show you because Wesley so captured with the rook. Now here comes d6, rook to c6, and now king to c4, bishop to b4, bishop to d7 attacking the rook, rook to b6, now bishop to b5, and it seems to me that this is a draw and white is completely fine. So let's go back to our c5. Now instead Wesley so captures with the rook, that is better than the capture with the pawn, and here comes rook capture on b7 with check, but this king is well safe. Not only that, from f6 can also think in the future to invade through these dark squares. Now rook to b5, at first rook to c3 with check, the king moves back to d2, again rook to c5 with the discovered check, the king moves back, and now Wesley so he changes the rooks. Rook captures on b5, the a pawn recapture, and now let's pay attention because of course what happens? It happens that black would like to attack this pawn with the rook, but then there is this maneuver, bishop to d7, and probably also bishop to c6. So that's why an idea is king to e7 blocking this bishop maneuver. Now the white rook must play rook to a1, bishop to b6, blocking the pass pawn. Rook to e6 is not a problem because there is rook to b8, and when the bishop will move away, there is the rook that is attacking b5, so there is a small but a dangerous advantage for black. Let's go back to our game. Instead, Wesley plays bishop to b6, that is another good idea, blocking the pawn and the rook, and of course Ramirez activates the rook. Rook to a1, and here comes g5, h3, a second control on the g4 square, and now rook to b8, indirectly attacking b5. The bishop now is free to move to d7, so protecting the pawn, and here comes g4, h capture, h captures, f captures, and now e4, because this is Wesley's idea to win the game. e4, and now the king must move away. King to e2, here comes f4. This is the position that I chose for the thumbnail. Ramirez has two pass pawns, but this one is a bit weak. This one could be the best one, but is very well blocked. Wesley was able to create two connected pass pawns, and now defending it's really difficult for white. g5, this is a clever idea played by Ramirez that in any case doesn't work. Wesley doesn't capture and plays king to e5, that is the best idea, protecting both pawns. But let's go back one move. Let's watch this tricky idea, because if now black captures on g5, notice that the king can't protect anymore this e4 pawn. So in my opinion, Ramirez's idea was rook to a4, but unluckily for white, this idea doesn't work because there is a rook to b7 that comes with tempo. Now what to play? This bishop to c8 doesn't do anything good for a white, because after bishop to c8 there is rook to c7 that is threatening to capture and also to give check. The bishop must move back, and this is a mess. So after rook to b7, there is the best continuation for white is bishop to h3, but now this rook can move to e7 behind the pawn under attack, and black is still fine. But anyway, good try by Ramirez. But let's go back to our game. After g5 we check, Wesley plays the best continuation, that is king to e5, and now g6. Rook to g8, attacking and blocking the pass pawn, and now rook to a6, bishop to c5, and here comes b6. Rook capture, now threatening to capture, also on g2 we check, so the bishop moves back to h3. Rook to g3, b7, and now rook to b3. Wesley is maneuvering beautifully. The rook not only is restricting the white king, but is perfectly placed behind the pass pawn and is also attacking this pass pawn. So bishop back to c8, protecting the pawn. There is no peace for this poor bishop. And now rook to b2 we check. King to d1, and here comes e3. King to c1, attacking the rook. But here comes bishop to d4. Everything is well protected. The pawn is still ready to advance. And now bishop back to g4. The rook captures on b7, removing any counterplay for white. And now bishop to f3, blocking at least this f4 pawn. But now here comes bishop to c3. Even more precise, in my opinion, is to enter with the rook on the second rank. But anyway, bishop to c3, controlling the square of promotion. And now rook to a4, bishop to b4. This is a block, blocking the rook for the king run. And now king to d1, king to d4. Here is the invasion, king to e2, and now king to c3. Rook to a1, the bishop moves back, clearing the file for the rook. And now rook to c1 we check, so the black king must move back to d4. Rook to c2, controlling this rook invasion. But here comes rook to b1. This is an idea that we always must keep in mind, because the rook, the black pieces, are attacking the only square protected only by the king. The square is e1. There is nothing to do, because after rook to a2, bishop to b4, the rook is ready to give check from behind. Bishop to h5, sorry for the arrow, wants to give the f3 square for the king to escape. Rook to e1 we check, king to f3, but there is also rook to f1 we check. If the king moves back, white gets checkmated. So the king must move away, king to g4, but after a rook to f2, Ramirez resigns. So I really love this endgame where Wesley played with beautiful strength and logic. In the description below the video you will find the game notation as usual and also the standings after 3 rounds, so don't watch the standings if you don't want spoilers. I really hope that you like the game, and if you did, please don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to the channel because I follow all the top chess tournaments. For now, I thank you very much for watching, and of course we will meet tomorrow with a new game from the US Championship 2020. Goodbye!